If you are what you say you are, a superstar, then have no fear. The camera's here and the microphones, and they wanna know. Yeah. A fresh, cool young Lou, trying to cash his microphone check 212. Wanna believe my own hype, but it's too untrue. The world brought me to my knees. What if you brung you? Did you improve on the design? Did you do something new? Where your name in on the guest list? Who brung you? You, the more famous person, you come through, and the sexy lady next to you, you come too. And then the hitman standing outside of heaven, waiting for God to come and get me. I'm too unschooled to the. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens, Riptide Media Networks, and the 102.9 The Game app. Thank you for joining me wherever you are joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. So are follows and subscriptions wherever you may be watching this at, whether this is on X/Twitter, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Facebook, or whether it's on YouTube, Twitch, or anywhere else, whether you're listening to it on Spotify or whatever it is that you might be listening to. Hopefully you're listening to it on the 102.9 The Game app, because that's where you can find all of the Riptide Media Network content at, on the 102.9 The Game app. Download that at the Google Play Store or wherever you download your apps at for Apple. I am admittedly an Android guy, and so anytime I want to boost things for Apple, or talk about downloading stuff or getting stuff for your iPhone, I have to try to remember where the stuff is, because I don't have any reference of it. I've never had an iPhone. It's funny too, because I'm a creative by nature, and the Apple platform itself, everything that comes with Apple is tailor-made for creatives, right? I'm a creator. It's tailor-made for creatives. It's supposed to be tailor-made for me. Yet when I think about the genesis of the iPhone and how it came about, and it's run up against like the Android phones, the old X, which essentially is the entire platforming and structure that the iPhone eventually stole. Like, I don't know, I just felt the way about it, and don't like the whole no button thing. And even now with a phone that doesn't have buttons, it kind of still has buttons. And so I've just kind of always been against it. And everyone that said, there's a lot of people that have said, man, when I transitioned over to iPhone, it was like, it took me a few minutes, and then a few days, once I got it, it was like I was out of there. And I believe them. I just really love my Android phones. And so until there's a real legitimate reason for me to leave, I'm probably not going anywhere. Hey, it was an absolutely fantastic night in basketball last night. And fantastic for some real simple reasons, right? The New York Knicks did the darn thing. Shout out to the Knicks fans out there, right? The non-miserable New York fans right now. We appreciate you guys actually being happy and upbeat and optimistic. The Knicks beat the Pacers at home 121-117. Jalen Brunson went for 43.6 rebounds and 6 assists. Hey, here's a news flash, Indiana Pacers. You're not going to win this series if Miles Turner is your leading scorer. If there's been nothing that we've learned in these like in these playoffs so far, if there's been nothing that we've learned while watching these playoffs unfold, is that Tyrese Halliburton should not be on Team USA. I don't care what nobody says. And I'm not even dissing Halliburton. I'm not saying that he shouldn't be on there one day. But Tyrese Halliburton is just a dude right now. He's just a guy. He's just another guy on their team. Right? Like how do we get beyond that? If you're looking at what Halliburton is doing in this series, you can't look at that dude and tell me that that's the dude that should be on Team USA. This is why you have Team USA tryouts. This is why you bring in the collective. So you can go, oh, you know what, Halliburton, he's going to be good, but he ain't ready yet. He doesn't have that seasoning yet. He needs a little more sprinkles on him, right? He needs a little more sauce on him before he's ready to be able to ascend to this level, this Olympic level. Like, yo, he is getting legitimately exposed in these playoffs, and they've made it to the second round. All right, that's the wild part. He's getting exposed for not being an elite level guy, and they've made it to the second round. But I said last series, yo, Pascal Siakam can't be your leading scorer if you're trying to beat Milwaukee. And then Milwaukee just had injuries and guys not playing well. Like, that happens. So shout out to the Pacers. They did what they should have done. But now you're up against this Knicks team, right? And I said yesterday in my picks, and the Jalen Brunson over points was the only one of the four that actually hit, right? It was the only one of the four picks that I gave that actually hit. So, like, if you followed me, you lost yesterday. But as I used to tell people all the time in sports betting, if you died taking a pick of mine, then we died together. I don't give out any picks that I don't play myself. But last night, Jalen Brunson did what he was supposed to do, 43 points. But the other guards came along too, 24 from Hart. Still can't believe how he's able to kind of, get points and rebound at the clip that he is, that he's rebounding at. 24, 13, and 8 from Hart. DiVincenzo ain't never seen an assist. So White Dante was out there 25 and 3. Double digits from Anunoby. Double digits from Hartenstein. Nothing really off the bench. But hey, this is what this coach does at this time. The bench gets short. Your starters play a ton of minutes. Josh Hart. Sorry. That dude from Villanova, by the way. That Villanova dude played 48 minutes last night. Next to Jalen Brunson, that Villanova dude who played 44 minutes last night. Next to Dante DiVincenzo, that Villanova dude who played 44 minutes last night. And it got me to thinking, right? Why do more teams not do this? Why do more teams not link up the best players off of a championship caliber team and put them on the same team together? This looks very similar to what we saw at Villanova. Guard-led teams with big men who were serviceable, did their jobs, knew their role. It's very Villanova-esque, right? Brunson was on their head. And I told you guys that he would have over 10 points from the free throw line. He went 14 for 14. Hey, I don't want to hear nothing else about no Tyrese Halliburton. I don't want to hear another thing about a Halliburton. I don't even know what a Halliburton's supposed to be. Until this dude shows up in a manner that makes it look like he understands, right? Unless we are moving him like he understands, then, right? What are we talking about? This is the playoffs. This ain't no 5 points, 8 points, 9 points, 12 points. This isn't the time for that. The playoffs is not the time to give us your C game. The playoffs is not the time to give us your game. The playoffs is the time to give us your elite level game. That game where you let everybody know, you let the world know, I'm out here. And Halliburton's not doing that. Can't hear any more about Halliburton. Don't even want to, nothing else. We're good. The other game last night, the Timberwolves versus the Nuggets, the Timberwolves blew out the Nuggets. 26 points. It wasn't even competitive. They were up by 20 at half, I believe. Jokic, 16, 6, 16, 16, and 8. It sounds like a great stat line until you realize they got blew out by 26 points. Karl-Anthony Towns, 27 and 12. Sounds much better. But Jokic, who I had over points because I thought he had to shoulder more the offensive load in this series, right? I had him over, I think he was at 31 points. I had Michael Porter Jr. over 18 and a half points because I really and truly believe that Jokic and Porter have to carry the heavy scoring load. But nobody scored except Aaron Gordon. And just like I talked about in the Indiana series, if Aaron Gordon is your leading scorer, you're not winning the series. Mind you, they did all of this in Denver. They got 2 in a row in Denver, and the second one was without Rudy Gobert there. Karl-Anthony Towns picked up the rebounding slack. He got 12 rebounds. Anderson off the bench, 9 rebounds. That's what you need. Oh, by the way, that guy, that man, Anthony Edwards, wearing that fresh number 5 jersey, right? That dude went for 27-7. 27-7. Hey, check out the plus minuses of the Minnesota Timberwolves starters. The starters. Anthony Edwards was plus 18. This is the plus minus. This is how much better they are as opposed to the person that's guarding them, right? Let's give a wave up for that. Let's, you know what I'm saying? Let's give it up for them. Let's make sure that they know. Like, you gotta appreciate this level of excellence. Plus 18 from Anthony Edwards. Plus 20 from Mike Conley. Mike Conley was plus 20, and he only scored 4 points. Plus 21 from Karl-Anthony Towns. And not for nothing, you're probably not winning this series. Any of you out there thinking right now, you've watched 2 games. Do you see Denver beating this team 4 games in a row? Right? Like, because at this point, that's what they need. Or better yet, do you see them winning 4 out of the next 5? 4 out of the next 5, 3 of which have to be played in Minnesota. I'm sorry, I don't see Denver pulling this out. This team is not the Lakers, right? This team's not the Lakers. This team has people who have clearly defined roles, who are comfortable in their roles, and they don't have a almost 40-year-old who's been in the league for 20 plus years as their best player. They've got a young 21-year-old, 22-year-old killer with a bunch of veterans around to be able to lead. This is not what LeBron James had in Cleveland. Because what LeBron James had in Cleveland was a bunch of nobodies, and I say that with respect. Nobody as in terms of nobody who's of major significance as an NBA player, but not necessarily nobody, because they're way better at their job than I will ever be at my job. They're way better at their job at playing basketball than I am at doing this. They're way better at playing basketball than I am at teaching, although they've reached a higher level at basketball than I have at coaching, although I would argue I'm as good a coach as any out there. But he was playing with a bunch of nobodies, a bunch of just dudes. And then they kept trying to add over-the-hill veterans. That's not what Minnesota has. Minnesota has a Karl-Anthony Towns in his prime, a Rudy Gobert in his prime, a Mike Conley past his prime, but a lot of tread on the tires. That's different. That's a different type of sauce than what LeBron James had when he was coming up through. That's similar to what Kobe Bryant had, except Kobe Bryant had a superstar in Shaq, right? He had an immovable force in Shaq. So it's a little bit different from that perspective, but you get what I'm saying. LeBron's out there trying to do what Anthony Edwards is doing, but he's almost double his age. That's not going to work. Not when your number 2 isn't Shaq, right? Or the number 1 isn't Shaq, and the number 3 isn't anybody. Like nobody of significance. Yo, Denver's in trouble. I hope the major platforms are talking about it the way it should be talked about. They are in trouble. If Rudy Gobert's not injured for long terms, and I haven't checked the injury report, so I don't really know what's going on with them. I can't call it, right? But if he's fine, if he's going to be okay, they in trouble. They're in trouble. If Gobert is there, because when Gobert is there and Karl-Anthony Towns is there, and with the depth that they have with the bigs, they're just not letting Jokic grab 16 rebounds. They're not letting Jokic get off offensively like he would versus some other teams. If that's the case, who do they turn to? Right? It should be Michael Porter Jr., but Michael Porter Jr. just had a really extremely bad shooting night. And if Michael Porter Jr. is going to go 4 for 12 and 1 for 7 from the three-point line, they're not winning this series. If Jamal Murray is going to go 3 for 18 and 0 for 4 from three-point line, they're not winning this series. If their answer is, oh, we got to bring in Jrue Holiday, right? I'm sorry, not Jrue Holiday. We got to bring in Justin Holiday because, hey, it's over. We're just going to shut these guys down and get ready for the next game. They're not winning. Sorry. Everybody was ready to crown the Nuggets as champions, myself included. Everybody was ready to say, how does anybody beat them in a 4-game series? Myself included. And now 2 games in versus Minnesota, and this looks like a mismatch. 2 games in versus Minnesota, and it looks like a mismatch. And you know how we would normally say, oh, well, it doesn't matter until, no, it matters, right? Because Minnesota is 2 up, and they're 2 up on the road. They're not even 2 up. They're not even 2 up at home, and now they got to go on the road. They're 2 up on the road. That's a significant difference. That's a significant change to the way that we normally see this thing work. Right? We normally see it work where, okay, they're going to go up. They're going to go up. They're at home. We get back home. We win game 3. It's 2-1, game on. Hey, even if the Nuggets win game 3, it's 2-1, but Minnesota's still at home. What happened to that era of invincibility that came with playing in the Mile High City? That's where they had their advantage at, the home games. People coming in, not really being acclimated. Man, Minnesota walked in there and said, we don't want to hear none of that. Man, get that out of here. None of it. They didn't want to hear a word, a peep, nada, zilch, nothing. Why? Because they were on their heads. Man, I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. Tonight we're back, more games. NBA never stops. I love it. Once we get to the playoffs, it's games every day that matter. Right? Once we get back, it's games every day that matters. And tonight, we got the Cavs and the Celtics opening up game 1. We got the Mavericks and the Thunder opening up game 1. Cavs and the Celtics game, I don't think it's going to be a game, although I think that it's going to be some real good scoring. It's going to be some real good scoring in this game. Right? In the final segment, I'll be back and I'll be getting you some prize picks tonight. But just know that Cavaliers Celtics game, I like a few people to put some points on the board. The Mavericks Thunder game, I like some people to put some points on the board. You know why? Because they've got stat stuffers. The Thunder has a stat stuffer. The Mavericks has a stat stuffer. So I like it there as well. What I think about these games, I think the Celtics Cavaliers game should be a walkover. I don't think the Cavaliers have the firepower to be able to mess with the Celtics. I don't think they have the ability to stop the Celtics. I think the Celtics have the ability to slow them down. Nobody gets stopped, right? So I don't think the Cavaliers have the horses or the firepower to slow down the Celtics. I 100% believe the Celtics have the ability to slow down the Cavaliers. That's the difference in the game. Give me Boston for the series. I think in this Thunder Mavericks game, though, this is I don't know what's going to happen, right? I don't know what's going to happen. The young boys have been balling. The young boys for the Thunder have been balling. But so have the veterans. So have the veterans. The veterans for Dallas, they've balled. They beat a really good Clippers team whom a lot of people had as a dark horse to win it all. And now you get this marquee matchup of the two foreign guys. You've got Gilgeous-Alexander versus Luka Doncic. You got the premier guys that are foreign guys. And then you've got the best watch in all of basketball. The greatest ball handler, bucket getter, understands how to manipulate the ball. It's Kyrie, and everybody's playing for second. So we get that sideshow. We also get the sideshow of, while everybody has given Victor Wembanyama, the rookie of the year, the real rookie of the year is still playing. The guy who really should have won rookie of the year is out there playing, and that's Chet Holmgren. Right? Chet Holmgren should have won rookie of the year. Why? Because he elevated a team. His presence on a team that was pretty much similar to last year's team elevated them all the way to the top spot in the league. Is he the best player on the team? No. Was his impact absolutely felt? Yes. How do we ignore that? How do we ignore that? I have no understanding. But that's just something extra and go to the next level for the playoffs as they continue to advance. I'm really interested to watch how they play him, how Oklahoma City plays Luka. Who's going to check Kyrie? I'm interested in all of it. It's going to be a great round number 2 of playoffs. It's already been good so far. It's going to continue to be great. When we come back, we'll be talking about the ESPN did a thing where they do a thing every year where they do a way too early NFL mock draft. Some interesting names in this mock draft, and we're going to talk about it when we get back. This is Talk Spicy on the Riptide Media Networks.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying, totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving.
A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, your prescription will be ready in just a minute. Hey, Dad, your laundry will be ready in just a minute. Dad, your lunch will be ready in just a minute.
Hey, honey, why don't you take a minute?
When you help care for a loved one, you give them as much time as you can, making sure they're safe and comfortable. But it's just as important that you take some time for yourself. At AARP, we can help with information and useful tips on how you can maintain a healthy life balance, care for your own physical and mental well-being, and manage the challenges of caring for a loved one. Because the better care you take of yourself, the better care you can provide for your loved one.
Thanks, Dad.
Thank you.
You're there for them. We're here for you. Find free care guides to support you and your loved one at aarp.org/caregiving. That's aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens, Riptide Media Network and the 102.9 The Game app. If you haven't already downloaded the app, go ahead and download that right now. So Jordan Reed, and shout out to Jordan Reed of ESPN, has come out with his way too early top 25, or 2025 first round mock draft. And to say that there are some questionable picks on here would be lying. Like, it would be underselling it. It's some downright head scratchers on here. And it starts immediately, right? It starts with the idea that Carson Beck is anybody's QB1 in the 2025 draft. Right? Carson Beck's the first pick. Mikael Williams, the edge from Georgia, is the second pick. Will Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU, is the third. James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee is the fourth pick. And then at 5 comes Shedeur Sanders to the Raiders via a trade, and I don't know how they did all of these things. But I'll go down. 6, Kelvin Banks, the tackle from Texas. 7, Will Johnson, the cornerback from Michigan. 8, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle from Michigan. A lot of Michigan folks. Abdul Carter, the Penn State edge, at 9. Don't ask me how Penn State has all of these elite level edge rushers yet. Can't seem to win the Big Ten. No clue. Luther Burden III, Missouri's wide receiver at the 10. How do you have there's a couple things. Let me rewind, because I got excited when I saw this, because I feel like this is what happens every year. There are players that get the push early, right? And then that becomes a narrative all year. And then what happens is when the real prospects come in and usurp them, people act as if you don't know what you're talking about. People act as if you don't understand like how to evaluate talent, because this is the name that they've heard the entire time. And again, this isn't shade on Jordan Reed. I understand when you have to do a bunch of mock drafts, maybe your first mock draft is way different than your final mock draft. But come on, my guy. Come on. Carson Beck as your number one quarterback. So people might be sitting back and saying, well, what do you have against Carson Beck? Okay. I'll tell you what I have against Carson Beck, and I'll tell you the reasonable things that I have against Carson Beck and the unreasonable things that I have against Carson Beck. Here's unreasonable. Here's the unreasonable first thing. Carson Beck has been at Georgia for 4 seasons. Did you know that? Carson Beck has been at Georgia for 4 seasons. It took Carson Beck 4 seasons to finally get on the field full-time at Georgia. Not because he was behind a future first-round draft pick or a guy who was going to be a factor in the NFL, but because he could not beat out Stetson Bennett. This is my unreasonable, right? This is the unreasonable one, right? But I hold it tight. If you can't beat out Stetson Bennett, then what are we talking about? What are we having a conversation about? It's not like Stetson Bennett went out there and put up like Joe Burrow numbers with all of the talent in the history of man to have. And so then in 14 games, in his 4th season as quarterback for Georgia, he gets the controls of a Georgia offense that has one of the best tight ends we've ever seen play and probably the best slot receiver, the best pure slot receiver in the draft, along with other 5-star talents everywhere. And he has a good season. A good season. 3,900 yards, 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. And in my mind, I'm going, that's great. Until I start to really dive into like the numbers versus what I saw with my own eyes, right? People get on a lot of teams about having like weak schedules, but we're not going to sit here and pretend as if the University of Georgia is playing like the hardest schedule in the history of man. Tennessee Martin, 294 yards. Ball State, 283 yards. Alabama Birmingham, 338 yards, 3 touchdowns. A really bad Auburn team, 313 yards. A Kentucky defense that apparently doesn't know how to play defense, 389 passing yards. A Florida team that was in shambles, 315 yards. Ole Miss never knew how to play defense, apparently, 306 yards. Tennessee lacks defensive prowess, 298 yards. Georgia Tech, 175 yards. And then Alabama, 243 yards, no touchdowns. No touchdowns. Carson Beck is not a plus with the legs. And if he is, he hasn't shown it, right? If he is a plus with the legs, he hasn't shown it. So he's not a plus with the legs. His touchdown numbers, 24 touchdowns, that's solid. but that's less than 2 touchdowns a game. If we add in the rushing touchdowns, the 4 rushing touchdowns, that is exactly 2 touchdowns a game. We're not talking about elite level production from somebody who has all of the resources, all of the tools, all of the weapons in the world, and this is what he's putting up. Hey, when you go from Stetson Bennett, who was just the guy you couldn't replace, and you replace him with a guy that was a 5-star recruit, a guy that was supposed to be everything that Stetson Bennett was not, height, right? Height, cannon arm, all the things. You would expect those statistics to look better. You would expect their team to play better, to beat Alabama, right? One of those defenses that looks like an elite level. This is kind of what you're going to see in the league defense. Never forget that the SEC East is not just the weaker of the two. It's the significantly weaker of the two. If we're drafting teams from the SEC, who are you taking? Right? Who's the number 1 pick? Let's say Georgia's the number 1 pick. Who's the number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 picks? Are you really taking Missouri? With those next 4 picks? Are you really taking Kentucky? Are you really taking Tennessee? Are you really taking Florida over LSU? Over Auburn, as Auburn gets his mojo back? Over Ole Miss? Over Texas A&M? Are you taking those teams? I gotta assume Texas is going to be in the West when they come through. So all I'm saying is that the red carpet is rolled out, and the history for Georgia quarterbacks is not good. The history for Carson Beck to be a good NFL player is not good. Now, I gave you the unreasonable, and I gave you the reasonable. What does he do better than several of these other quarterbacks that are coming into the draft? He's not a better pure passer than Cam Ward. I'm sorry. He's not a better pure passer than Shedeur Sanders. I'll give him he's a better pure passer than Jalen Milroe, but not by much. Right? Not since we said that accuracy, right? That completion percentage doesn't equal accuracy. Since we've said that doesn't matter anymore when it was convenient, let's keep that same energy now. Yes, he's more accurate than Jalen Milroe. He doesn't have a stronger arm. He can't put the ball in places Jalen Milroe can, even with that accuracy. Because Jalen Milroe can drive a ball in a place that Carson Beck can't. And that's all before we get to what they do with their legs. Is Carson Beck a better prospect than Sloter? I'm asking these questions because Shedeur Sanders is at 5th. I'm sorry, he's drafted 5th to the Raiders, and maybe somebody thought it was cute. Oh, we'll draft him to the Raiders because, no. If the Giants are trading up to number 1 to get a quarterback, they're trading up to get Carson Beck? You got to be kidding me. You got to be kidding me. Now, with all that being said, maybe the kid comes out this year, lights the world on fire, changes everything. There's always the chance, right? That's always the chance. Do I see him coming out and lighting it up to the same level as Shadur Sanders, as Jalen Milroe, as Cam Ward, as Kenan Silvers, but as Caden Sloter? No, I don't. And don't give me they run the ball in Georgia, because they haven't run the ball super well in Georgia. Not last year, they didn't. That's why they were so hell-bent on going out and stealing other people's players. There's zero reason for Carson Beck to be considered the number one player on the board for the 2025 class, let alone the number one quarterback. Right? Nothing. There's nothing. Not a thing. We keep on allowing these narratives to get painted. And we keep on allowing these narratives to get painted with no oversight. With no, hey, watch what you're doing. Hey, watch how you're doing it. Hey, you don't need to do this. Right? We just let people get these comments off. We don't give them no pushback until it's too late. Until it's already ingrained into the people's brains. And we say all of that, and you look on the top 10 and you know who you don't see there? You don't see Travis Hunter in the top 10. You don't see you don't see the best cornerback in the league, who also doubles as one of the best wide receivers not in the league, but in college, who arguably doubles as one of the best wide receivers in college. You don't see him being a top 10 pick. If the positional value of a wide receiver has 3 of them go in the first round, and the positional value of an elite level corner has them going in the top half of a first round, how is a guy who does both at an elite level not going in the top 10 of a draft, let alone not in the top 5? How are you taking other wide receivers over him? Other skill guys over him, not named quarterback? How? How are you taking tackles and edge rushers who don't produce at the level of consistency that this young man has produced when he's on the field at that level? It doesn't make any sense. Everything that we've heard about Travis Hunter from the moment he arrived in college at Jackson State was he's a harder worker than everybody else. He's a yes sir, no sir guy. He's not out on the streets wilding out. He's at the house with some pajamas on, streaming, playing video games, hanging with his girl. We've heard nothing but positive things about Travis Hunter, who from a personality standpoint seems to be the anti-cornerback wide receiver that we see coming around these days. He can't be a top 10? An elite level athlete who has the skills to play, the legitimate skills to play on both sides of the ball, who doesn't get in trouble, who keeps it low key, and he can't be a top 10? Now, again, I know this is just one mock draft. And I know that in the grand scheme of things, this mock draft is not going to matter. But this is how the narrative gets started. This is how we end up with situations where people think someone isn't as valuable as what they are. This is how Michael Penix was thought of as a second-round pick, because everybody kept looking at stuff that clearly GMs didn't care about, that clearly NFL GMs were not afraid of. Everybody kept saying, "Oh well, Michael Penix Jr. he's a top-level talent, but his medicals are so bad that he's a second-round, third-round pick." I heard people saying it all the time. That's how Luke Easterling justified having him in the second round of many of his drafts. I really like the kid. If I was drafting, he would be one of mine. But ... the injury history ... so on and so forth. That's what he dealt with. And so the narrative was so bad on him that when he goes with a top pick to a team who already has a quarterback that they paid money to, everybody, including me, who always had a first-round grade on him, who thought he was the second best quarterback in the draft, right? Even I was shocked. But why should I be shocked? He's one of the best quarterbacks in the draft, and when you can get one, you get one. When you can get one, you get one. And they got one. Shout out to Atlanta. But even I was shocked. Even I was surprised. Even I was caught off guard. It had me feeling away. Why am I caught off guard by this? Why am I bothered by this? Why is this an issue for me? I think he's really good. It's because the narrative told us all year that it didn't matter how good he played or how healthy he stayed over the past 2 years, that teams were going to think about him in terms of the medicals. That teams are going to devalue him because of the medicals. That's all we heard. And because that's all we heard, that's all we held them to. That's all we held those players to. And lo and behold, once things reveal themselves, we find out that's not the truth. We find out that's not how it went down. And the same thing, again, oh, well, Travis Hunter, he plays on both sides. So is he really getting the teaching that he needs to be elite at one level? Who cares if he is at his ceiling as a cornerback? Who cares if he hasn't gotten to his ceiling as a wide receiver, if he hasn't gotten to his ceiling as a cornerback, because he plays both ways? Wherever he's at right now is better than any cornerback that was taken in the draft this year in 2024. Is better than anybody who was taken in the draft at cornerback. And that skill set puts him on par with any one of these receivers that was taken, Malik Neighbors included. Do I think he's at Malik Neighbors' height? I don't know. It would be really interesting if he played wide receiver full time. Right? It would be really interesting. I'm going to be really interested to see what type of numbers he puts up in an offense that should be better at blocking, at pass blocking, if nothing else. If they're better at pass blocking, then the numbers for the receivers are going to go crazy, because Shedeur is going to find them. The level of clutch gene on a Shedeur should have had him over Carson Beck. The swagger and the moxie of Shedeur Sanders should have had him over Carson Beck. And that's before you get into the tangibles. Right? That's before you get into the intangibles, people. Shedeur Sanders and what he was able to do at Colorado can't be ignored. Remember those numbers from Carson Beck, right? Almost 4,000 yards passing. 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, I believe. Shedeur Sanders, 3,200 yards passing, 27 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And that was on a team where he was running for his life. That was on a team where he was running for his life the entire year. Carson Beck sitting back there, operating in clean pockets on a regular basis, throwing the guys who have been playing together, who've been learning the same system for 3 years. Those guys who left this year in the draft, Ladd McConkey and the Alien, both of them have played in college as long as Carson Beck has. There's a chemistry there. There's an understanding there. There's a camaraderie there. There's a connection there. Shedeur Sanders didn't have that. And even without that, the numbers went crazy. We start looking at what a guy like Cam Ward was able to do in his 2 seasons at Washington State. Very similar numbers to Carson Beck, except in less games. Remember, Colorado, no bowl game, right? No bowl game. So they didn't play 14. Washington State didn't play 14. You're talking about a guy that in 2 years at Washington State put up 6,900 yards, 48 touchdowns, and 16 interceptions. Increase the touchdowns, decrease the interceptions this year. But now he's never had Georgia weapons. He's never had Georgia weapons. And now he's going to Miami, where hopefully, because of all the money that Miami spent, he's going to get some weapons comparable. That's comparable. If not, they should be ashamed of themselves. But there's no reason why Carson Beck and a bunch of edge rushers that most of the common people have never heard of before, who don't put up elite level numbers in college, there's no reason why they should all be ahead of a guy like Shedeur Sanders or ahead of a guy like Travis Hunter. No reason. But these are the narratives that get spun, right? These are the narratives that get spun. James Pierce Jr. had 10 sacks last year. He had 10 sacks last year. In his 2 seasons playing, he has 12 sacks. What about that tells you I'm taking him with the top 5 pick? Oh, let me guess. It's the immeasurables, right? It's the stuff that we don't see. It's his height, it's his weight, it's his speed. We give you all of that. We set the narrative for you. We tell you why these dudes deserve to be taken, right? But the truth is, we don't have any, a lot of times we don't have any statistical data to back it up. We just out here talking. Mykel Williams, whom is listed for some people as an edge, right? Has 13 sacks in 2 seasons. 13 sacks. 6.5 one year, 6.5 the next year. What about, has 9 sacks in 2 seasons. I was looking at tackles for loss. He has 9 sacks in 2 seasons. I was talking about this with Brandon Howard. Like, what's the difference? Like, why did Chop Robinson not go higher? Why do people have such hesitation on Chop Robinson? And we both agreed. You can get all the pressure you want, but you got to get home. You got to get home. He doesn't get home. He's only been home 9 times in 2 years. Over 28 games, he's gotten home 9 times. This will be the guy that you draft, and then you'll be disappointed that he doesn't get more sacks when in reality, that might not be his game. You drafted him to be the sack master, but he's not the sack master. And so now you look at him as a bust. But these are narratives that get sprung. These are narratives that get sprung. I personally don't understand when you have commodities that have proven it, that have track records, that seem like they know how to navigate this world of fame and excess and access and everything that comes along with it. Why they don't get a higher bump? Shedeur Sanders should get a higher bump than any other quarterback in the class of 2025, just off the fact that you know that he understands how to be a pro, how to comport himself as a pro. And I don't mean these tweets. Get that stuff out of there. He's defending his father. Same way you would want him to defend his teammates. Only because it's Coach Prime you care and you don't like it. Everywhere else you love it. Everywhere else, you love it. When we come back, we'll look at some more highlights from the day. This is Talk Spicy on the Riptide Media Networks.
To some people, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much. But that's not necessarily true. By 6 months, they're combining vowels and consonants. By 9 months, they're trying out different kinds of sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on some meaning. Especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Early screening and intervention can make a lifetime of difference and unlock a world of possibilities. Take the first step at autismspeaks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
The following is made possible by Dad.
Why was the basketball court all wet? Because the players kept dribbling all over it.
The dad joke. Corny, grown-worthy, but also one of the simplest ways to share a moment with your kids.
Why do you have to be careful when it's raining cats and dogs? Because you might step in a poodle.
And kids that spend more time with their dads grow up to be smarter, more successful.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding.
And, with any luck, funnier adults.
Why didn't the skeleton go to the dance? Because he didn't have any body to go with.
Dad jokes rule. So take a moment to make a moment and give your kid a laugh. It's as easy as going to fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
That's really funny.
Okay, men. This is your time. Maybe you didn't choose this, but you're here now. You're gonna go out there and be an all-star caregiver. It's up to you. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna go grocery shopping, cook, clean, be there emotionally and physically. You gotta dig deeper. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments. Don't you forget about the pharmacy. No, you won't. Because that's what caregivers do. Don't give up. Don't ever give up. This is your time to show the world, your family, and yourself that you're tougher than tough. Now go out there and be the best caregiver this world has ever seen. Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talk Spicy. Coach Gene Clemens, Riptide Media Network, and the 102.9 The Game app. Make sure you download that wherever you do your app downloading that, whether it's on the Google Play Store or on the Apple Store. I think it's the Apple Store. Whatever. Somebody put in the comments what you call the place where you get the iStore. Is it the iStore or something? The Apple Store? I sound so old when I say that, but the truth is it's not old. I just don't screw with the platform, like I told you. But anyway, holler at me. Tell me what it is. Let me know what it is, and we'll, I'll figure it out from there. I was watching something that really startled me before the show started. Austin Rivers was on the Pat McAfee show and essentially was talking about basketball players transitioning to football, transitioning to basketball. But he said something, and I wanted to play it for you because I wanted to see, number one, if you agree, because I know how I feel about it. So let me make sure I got this on here right. And again, this is via the Pat McAfee show. This is via the Pat McAfee show, and it is Austin Rivers talking about basketball players playing football and football players playing basketball. And no worries, because Austin's going to get the full screen for this. He was saying some stuff.
NBA is a fantastic. Let's not get crazy though. About 30 guys could go in there.
I mean,
who's coming? Anthony Edwards.
We got 5 max.
We got Anthony Edwards coming over.
Jimmy Butler.
Russ. Oh, you guys are drunk early in the morning.
Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook.
Zion, a left tackle.
Zion would be fantastic, but then he would just be he'd just be a football player, which he has been maybe this entire time.
Pretty much. True.
I put Josh.
So
Draymond at the end, maybe just clubbing people.
We've seen Draymond in pass already.
We saw it. Well, he's not playing. He's not playing tight end.
Think about them running in these. You know what I mean?
Man.
Like it is.
Fish
It's just.
out of water.
Nonetheless, you guys are great athletes. Okay.
Global. We're global. We're global, man. Because football somewhere else is a little bit more important. They call it. You know what I mean? When you go overseas, you talk about football. They think you're talking about real football.
What's that?
Soccer.
You don't believe that.
Shut up.
Come on. You don't believe Come on. There's no way.
That came out of your mouth uncomfortable.
Talk about soft.
Yeah, I don't even want to. You guys flopping with the soccer community enough. I played soccer growing up. Couldn't do it, but Vincenzo last night. Middle of the hole.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Austin Rivers saying that there are 30 he could take 30 basketball players and have them play in the NFL right now, but you can't take 30 NFL players and put them in the NBA. So first off, let's take it for what it's worth, right? The skill, basketball is a skill sport. Basketball is a skill sport. Basketball, contrary to popular belief, is not an athleticism sport. However, you will find it hard to get to the highest level without a requisite amount of athleticism, like without a high amount of athleticism. But basketball is not an athleticism sport. If it was, then you could never have a Steph Curry, because Steph Curry is not like an elite level athlete. He's not an elite level athlete. I was more athletic than Steph Curry when I was playing. You don't believe me? You don't have to believe me, because it sounds like cap, because I'm not Steph Curry, and I'll never be Steph Curry. He's always been better at basketball than I was, although I would body the hell out of him if we ever had played when we were in high school, right? I'm not saying that I'm better than Steph Curry. I'm saying I'm a better athlete than Steph Curry is. We're probably about the same height, right? We're probably about the same height. He might be a little shorter. I was faster, I was bigger, I was stronger, and I jumped higher. Everything that an athlete is supposed to do, I could do better than Steph Curry. But you know what I couldn't do? Couldn't shoot. Couldn't shoot. And I couldn't, it's not like I couldn't shoot as well as Steph Curry. I couldn't shoot. Why? Because my game was predicated on athleticism, and it was predicated on intelligence. It was not predicated on building the guard skills necessary, because I didn't play guard. I wasn't a guard. The only thing I did like a guard was pass. And that's because passing, I believe, is an innate ability that you either have or you don't have. It's anticipation, it's placement, it's the closest like parallel between football and basketball we have is throwing the ball, right? Passing and throwing the ball. There's a good amount of dudes who have made it in the NBA without being elite level athletes, like elite level athletes. I could argue that Austin Rivers was not an elite level athlete. Right? I could argue those things. I don't think there's a snowball's chance in hell that Austin Rivers could go over to football and play anything. Now, maybe I'm wrong, right? Because maybe with all of the rule changes that are put in place to protect people, that basketball players would have a better shot of transitioning over. But I'm telling you, it's a different type of lateral quickness on football than it is on basketball. That's why the football-related skills transition so well on the basketball court. The contact balance, right? The adjustments of one's body that you learn in football, that's why they transition so well to the basketball court. But it's also why the basketball stuff doesn't transition to the football field, with one exception, and that's an ability to high point and locate and bring in a football. That should be a skill that should transition from basketball. When I played receiver, because I played basketball, if you threw the ball up in my vicinity, I was going to be able to try to snag it. Like, that's all I really needed, is for you to get it somewhere close to my body, and I was going to be able to snag it. That is the parallel, right? It's not nothing else. There's nothing else in football, or there's nothing that you do in basketball that's going to feel like basketball in football. All the way down to the way in which you cut, the way in which you break, it's not the same. I played both sports. I played both sports in college. I can tell you there's a difference between both sports, but it's much easier for me coming off the football field to touch a basketball court. Why? Because my ability to play in a phone booth and to play in space gives me that advantage. My athleticism allows me to get over. Even if I can't shoot, you know what I could always do? I could always defend. I could always rebound. I could run the court, and I could finish at the rim. Now, here's the problem with the 30 football players can't come to the NBA. He's right. He's right. 30 NFL players can't go to the NBA and play because those 30 football players never developed the skill necessary to play in the NBA. But the other side is that those 30 basketball players never treated their body to a sport where it had to become accustomed to taking violent hits on a play-in, play-out basis. It's not that the basketball players couldn't come over there and be athletic like the football players. It's that they can't be athletic and get beat on at the same time. I heard someone say, oh, put Draymond Green there and he'll just club. Draymond was awful. Oh, well, he's not playing tight end. Hey, guess what, buddy? It doesn't matter. Playing tight end, playing defensive end is still physical. And if you can't be physical at one position, you're not going to be physical at the other. So who are we talking about? Who are all of these NFL, these NBA players who are just going to come over to the NFL and cook? I heard the names that they gave. Anthony Edwards, yes, he was a legitimate football player who could have been a football player who made the right decision in going to play basketball. To a certain extent, he's still living just off athleticism. His skills improving every day. But the Anthony Edwards you see now is not the Anthony Edwards you saw at the University of Georgia. You want to know why? Because he was still just a football dude playing basketball at the University of Georgia. He got to the league. He's continuing to refine his skills. So guess what would happen if you took the football players, gave them 3 years, right, to work on skill development, and then put them into basketball camps versus what would happen to the basketball players if you told them they had to get physical, more physical for 3 years. You're going to get a lot more bodies breaking down. You're going to get a lot more tissue injuries, soft tissue injuries, more ligament and bone injuries. The war of attrition will take over. There's no war of attrition with football players going to basketball. When I would leave the football field to go to basketball, within a week, maybe 2 weeks, I would be down 10 pounds. Not because I was trying to lose weight, but because the nature of the sport, I think, tells my brain, hey, you no longer have to carry that weight. You no longer have to be that strong. You no longer have to be that big. You can let some of that go. You can lean out. We can adapt to the environment. Your body does that stuff naturally, adapting to the environment, especially when you are a high-level athlete. So I am not surprised at somebody like Austin Rivers saying something like that. I'm surprised that the Pat McAfee show people didn't kill him more. That they weren't on his head more. These people, this show, who will stand up and say what they think, and all you got Austin Rivers saying that you guys are all drunk or high in the morning, and y'all are not telling him in no uncertain terms that you would knock his mofo chin strap loose. You are not telling him in no uncertain terms that he would not make it through a football game, that he would get punished on the first time he came across on a slant and a linebacker read it and ran right through him. Maybe it's because Pat McAfee is a kicker that he didn't feel as if he could really go in on Austin Rivers. But I wish Austin Rivers would have talked that noise around me. Hey, man, y'all can't make it through a basketball game. You take too many shots, y'all are down on the ground, you're not getting up. How you going to make it through a practice? Hey, we got to hit today, fellas. We got to hit today. How are you going to take it through? You're playing on turf, knees getting torn up. Y'all got to ice bag it down every day on a basketball court. Man, I would have been all over the hoopers. Y'all don't even practice how, y'all don't even prepare your bodies the same way. Many basketball players are not doing explosive lifting, Olympic level lifting. They're doing bands, right? They're working on tendon flexibility. They're working on muscle endurance, not power, not explosiveness. They're working on endurance. They're working on how to allow their body to last over time in a non-contact sport that keeps getting even more and more non-contact. So now you're going to leave that alone and come over to the everything's contact sport? Austin Rivers is tripping. Austin Rivers was sipping on the special sauce this morning. He was smoking on a wacky. Whatever you want to call it, this idea that basketball players didn't become full-time basketball players after they were on the football field and realized this ain't for me. There's not a football player in the world that played football and basketball that gave up basketball because basketball was too physical. Because basketball was too hard. They gave up basketball because they saw a ceiling and they knew that the ceiling was higher on the football side. They gave up basketball because basketball wasn't going to butter their bread the way football would. They gave up basketball because they weren't getting enough PT. When basketball players give up football, they are 100% in almost every case giving it up because football is way more physical than what they want to do. Rarely do you get the LeBron James, hey, I'm going to be so rich and famous in basketball, it would almost be irresponsible for me to play football. I told y'all the story about Kevin Knox, quarterback. Gave up football because he knew he was going to be in the league one day. These are smart moves, but these are the few and the far between. More often than not, it's a guy who comes out in football, doesn't have the success, feels that fire, feels that pressure, feels that anxiety, feels that strength, feels that gravitas that comes with playing football and goes, I'm good. They go, nah, I'm good. That's normally what happens. That is usually how it goes down. These football players, they don't quit basketball. Basketball quits them. The basketball players are 100% quitting football. The audacity, Austin Rivers. It's football players right now that give basketball players work when they play in pickup games. And don't give me, the team game, the real team game is much different. Yeah, that's the stuff that's easy to learn. That's the stuff that's easy to learn. What's not easy to learn is how to shoot 45% from free throw line. That's why, from the three-point line. That's why so few NBA players do it. That's why so few NBA players shoot that well from the free throw line, from the three-point line. Hell, it's just a lot more difficult to learn how to shoot. But from an athletic standpoint, you got football players out here doing all the dunks that your favorite basketball player can do. And they're doing it at 5'10", 5'11", 6'2", 6'4". They're not doing it at 6'9", 6'8", 6'6", 6'7", 6'10". They're not doing it with those built-in genetic markers already there to help them with the height. They're doing it with the genetic markers that were built into them that says I can jump out the gym because I'm naturally gifted athletically, and I have been lifting and doing explosion exercises my entire life because that's what football is based off of. Hey, man, these football players would get you the heck up out of here, Austin Rivers. Can anybody tell me what Austin Rivers did at the NBA level that was so good that your elite level football player that's played basketball in their past couldn't come over and do? He was a role player who made open shots, who played defense. I don't know. Sometimes these dudes just be out here saying anything. Hey, let's just say whatever we want, right? Let's just say whatever we want. Who cares if it's accurate? Who cares if it's real? Let's just say whatever. That's what we do. That's what we do in this life now. Austin Rivers, you got to be better, my guy. I'm sorry. You got to be better. There's got to be something more. And when we come back, amongst a few highlights, amongst a few headlines to get us out of here, I'll be giving you some of my single game fantasy picks for NBA basketball tonight. Don't go anywhere. It's Talk Spicy on the Riptide Media Network.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together by having the courage to start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding.
Whoa!
Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back.
Woo-hoo. Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie.
So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving.
A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Talk Spicy. Riptide Media Networks, I am Coach Gene Clemens. Make sure you download the 102.9 The Game app. If you haven't already, if you have never done it, if you've never thought about doing it, definitely go out there and do it. Because, why not? Why not, right? That's the way it should be. Great slate of NBA games that are coming on tonight. I told you that I thought there was some really tasty single game fantasy over-unders on the points in these games. I'm gonna tell you what I like immediately tonight. And again, take these with an understanding that if I'm telling you this, right? If I'm telling you that this is something that I'm into, that this is something I believe you should play, then you need to automatically know that if I'm saying it, then if you play it, I played it. I don't play anything that I am not willing to, or I don't tell you anything that I am not willing to or am playing myself. One of the things that I've noticed, right, during the playoffs and over the last 10 games is that Jason Tatum has slowed down on his production as a scorer. I think he's done that on purpose. I think that has been to allow the others to shine, allow the others to get their thing off, and be really more of a well-rounded basketball player, points, rebounds, and assists. I think that is very important to Tatum. And as such, I think that for him, we need to look at not just his overall points, right, which are at 27.5, but his points, rebounds, and assists, which are currently at 41.5. 41.5 to me means that you need to have a 25 plus point night. You need to have a a rebounding night that's pushing close to 10. Anywhere between 10 or excuse me 7 and 10, and then you need to have 7 assists, right? Like 25 and then 14, you would still come up. That is a healthy night. It's a healthy night. But here's the thing that helps, right? Kristaps Porzingis is out. So if Porzingis is out, then everybody's numbers have to improve. Everybody's numbers have to get better because everybody's going to be counted on to score the ball, to rebound, and all of that thing. So I look at a Jaylen Brown at 33.5 points, rebounds, and assists. And it looks like something I would look at. I look at a Jason Tatum at 41.5 points, rebounds, and assists. It's something I would look at. I look at a Donovan Mitchell at 37.5 points, rebounds, and assists. And it's something I got to consider, right? First off, you got to remember, this Donovan Mitchell we're talking about. Donovan Mitchell gets into the playoffs, and he's putting the ball up. Like, he is not playing. Donovan Mitchell over his last 10 games, I believe, is averaging 20.2 points. He's averaging 30 at the Garden. 2 games played at the Garden this year, he's averaging 30. Now, again, you might be saying to yourself, oh, that was regular season. This is the playoffs now. But remember what I told you about Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's going to get these points up. You don't believe me? Game 7, 39 points. Right? Game 6, 50 points. Game 5, 28 points. He's gonna get these buckets up. He's got no other choice. He's the number 1 scorer for them. So I think I like Donovan Mitchell over the 27.5. I don't actually think I like it. I love it. That's one of my plays. The other play that I really like is Jason Tatum over the 41.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Jason Tatum has to be the man. No Porzingis. Who's getting the rebounds? Right? Jason Tatum has to be the man. He has to be the guy that gets it done for his team. He has to be the one that puts the team on his back. Over his last few games, right? Versus Miami to close out 16, 12, and 3. Game before that, 20, 11, and 5. Game before that, 22, 11, and 6. Game before that, 28, 8, and 3. Now, you're probably sitting there going to yourself, that don't sound like 41.5 points. It's not. But what do we know about the final game? Blowout. What do we know about game 4? Blowout. What do we know about game 3? Blowout. Game one, close until then it got a blowout at the end. 23, 10, and 10. 23, 10, and 10. Right? This Cleveland team is not going to allow him the freedom to relax. This Cleveland team is not going to allow him the ability to relax. In his 3 games versus Cleveland, he's averaging 26, 11, and 3. 26, 11.3, and 3. That puts him right at 40 points. I'll take the playoff bump. I'll take the 26, 11, and 5. I'll take the 26, 9 and 8. I'll take the 28. I'll take the 28, 8 and 9. You get what I'm saying? Like, I'll take those combinations that get me to the 41.5 out of Jason Tatum tonight. They're in Boston. It's going to be key. Cleveland's going to try to score. They're not going to stop trying to score. That's why I'm taking that 41.5 with Tatum. And I ain't thinking about it. That's points, rebounds, and assists. Now, over to the other game, Luka Doncic, 52 points, rebounds, and assists. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 40.5 points, rebounds, and assists. Now, the Luka number sounds astronomical, 52, until you think about what Luka does, right? Once you start thinking about what Luka does, it doesn't sound so crazy. Those numbers don't sound so far-fetched. Luka has the ability to put up astronomical numbers versus teams. Luka, on average this year, right, is 40 points, 33.9 points, 9.8 points, 9.2 points. He averages almost over 52 points, right? If you add in the 9.8 to the 9.2, that's 10. That's 43.9, right? That's over he averages that, right? If you average that, I got to feel good about your ability to be that. He's the leading scorer. He's the leading rebounder. He's the leading assist man. And versus OKC, in the 2 games that they've played against OKC, 34, 13.5 assists, 11.5 rebounds. That's a cash check. On the road games, because they were in OKC, the road games, 33.5, 9.9, 9.6. Postseason stats, 29.8, 8.8, 9.5. Luka is not going to be the issue here, my guy. Luka's not going to be the issue. He's going to put up his points. He's going to get his assists. He's going to get rebounds. Why? Because they ain't got no big men. Like, it's interesting because they were playing against teams with legit bigs, right? So they were able to keep him off the boards versus the Clippers. But he went over 30 points, three of the 6 games. Right? He went over 30 points 3 of the 6 games. He went 9 rebounds or more 5 of the 6 games. He went 10 rebounds or more 3 of the 6 games. Would I roll the dice? He's going to be able to put one of those games together where he's got 30-something, double-digit rebounds, double-digit assists? Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm taking that 52. I'm going over. I'm going over with that. The Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's been one of the best players in all of the NBA, right? A do everything kind of dude for his team. A do everything kind of dude for his team. His points and rebounds and assists over 40.5, right? 24, 10, and 3. This is versus New Orleans. 24, 10, and 3. 24, 5, and 8. 33, 5, and 3. 28, 6, and 4. Right? 28, 6, and 4. 15, 6, and 1. Like you think about all of these, you think about all of those numbers, and you go, man, didn't get over 40 and a half except one time. One time he got 41. You know what that tells me? Might be a little bit scary. Might be a little bit scary. But it's always the bump, right? There's always the bump. There's the bump that you get when we go from seeing you in the regular season to seeing you in the playoffs. But for Gilgeous Alexander, it's been the opposite. The points have been a little bit lower. The rebounds and assists have been about the same. But what about this Mavericks defense? That's where we have to look at. What about this Mavericks defense and rebounds? Well, here's the truth. Dallas ain't playing no defense. Dallas not playing any defense. Versus the Clippers, right? Well, I shouldn't say they're not playing any defense. They weren't playing against an offensive team that looks to fill it up. They are now playing against an offensive team that will fill it up if you let them. Right? They'll fill it up if you let them. So, like, for me, I look at that and I go, all right, well, you're playing against a team that lets you fill it up. Gilgeous Alexander, can I count on him to get his normal points? Sure. He's going to have to. Right? He's going to have to. I also think there's some good, like, super overs out there, like when you're really, really good, like Gilgeous Alexander over 31 and a half if you really want to get crazy. Luka Doncic over 35 and a half if you really want to get crazy. Right? Kyrie going ham. Like, the opportunities are out there. Jason Tatum over 30. Donovan Mitchell over 30. There's some good picks out there tonight, ladies and gentlemen. And I only gave you a few. Right? I only gave you a few. If you're out there trying to get that bread, there's a good way to get that bread. So I want to nail this home, right? I'm gonna go here. We got points. I'm gonna go with Donovan Mitchell over. Sorry. I'm going to go with Donovan Mitchell over on points. I'm going to go with Jason Tatum over on his points, rebounds, and assists. I'm going to go with Luka Doncic over his points, rebounds, and assists. I'm going to go with Gilgeous Alexander over his points, rebounds, and assists. I'm going to go with I'm going to go with those four. Go with those four. Correct in the lineup to get this money. I lock it in. I hope all of y'all have success. If you don't, again, always know that if you died with picks from me, we died together. If you died with picks from me, we died together. Lots of great things out there tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure that y'all are paying attention. The Yankees are on fire. Tomorrow I'm coming in here with an entire segment on the Yankees and what we've been doing. Might reach out to some guests tomorrow. It should be interesting to watch as the temperatures start to rise. Which teams better navigate the temperatures outside, because it is getting hot fast in a lot of places. And so there are going to be people who manage this heat better, right? There's going to be people who manage this heat better, and then there's going to be people who mismanage this heat, and you're going to see play start to like dip because of it. Yeah, I'm talking about in baseball. Baseball is the only sport that gets played through the summer, right? And while it might be all cool in the north, the further south you get, it's hot and that temperature is rising. Those temperatures in the north have been crazy. So I'm looking to see which teams are better able to navigate this weather and what type of advantages that gives teams. But I gotta tell you, love the way that the Yankees are playing. I feel like you got a high coup coming. You just gotta wait. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Talk Spicy. Riptide Media Networks. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you as always. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree. But whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. And if you're joining me on the YouTube app or wherever you are listening or watching on social media, we appreciate you. Like, follow, subscribe, all of the things. Till next time, peace.